Good evening, friends, and welcome to How Long, O Lord, a musical exploration of lament and deliverance for Lent, sponsored by the BTS Center in partnership with Deus Ex Musica. We are here to learn, to listen, and to simply take calling How Long, O Lord, on this particular February evening during Lent in 2021. My name is Nicole Dieroff. I serve as program director at the BTS Center, and tonight I am happy to be your host for this event. I want to offer gratitude to my colleagues, Kay Ahmed, BTS Center Office Manager, and Alan Ewing Merrill, BTS Center Executive Director, for their presence and tech management this evening. Kay and Alan, I invite you to share greetings in the chat as you are able. I want to extend a special welcome to those of you joining us on Facebook Live. And for those of you here with us on Zoom, please put on your digital name tags and let's say hello to one another in the chat box. Let's start by sharing where you are logging in from this evening. If you want to share your location, we would welcome that. I am seeing Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, California, welcome, Georgia, Montana, Connecticut, and many more. Please keep throwing those in. We are so glad you're here. Second, for those of you who are observing the season of Lent, might you share a word or two about what this season means for you? It might hold similar meaning every year. It might hold special meaning this year. I'm seeing reflection, transformation, tuning up, opportunity, hope, preparation, simplifying, devotion, renewal, and many more things. Lastly, I am wondering if you have a favorite psalm that you would love to hear diverse musical interpretations of someday. Please share what psalm that is in the chat. Maybe this will gear us up for another program. I'm seeing Psalm 42, 27, 51, Psalm 8, Psalm 22, and many more. Thank you all for sharing those things. Feel free to keep popping them in and reading them, reflecting on them as we get started. We are so glad each of you are here with us this evening. We will have other opportunities for you to contribute via the chat this evening. But please, if the chat is distracting to you, simply close it down and pay attention to what's being shared. Make this evening meaningful for you. We will be recording this program and making it available on the BTS Center website if you want to watch again or share the link with a friend or colleague. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to our moderator for tonight's program, the founder of Deus Ex Musica, Dr. Delvyn Case. Del is a composer, conductor, scholar, and educator. He serves as associate professor of music at Wheaton College in Massachusetts and is a member of Old South Church UCC in Boston. He is also the 2021 Maine Composer of the Year as selected by the Maine Music Teachers Association. Thank you, Del, for being with us this evening.
I'm really happy to be here, and hello everyone who's joining from all over the country. I live in Massachusetts, but I grew up in Maine and work in the Portland area, doing musical things through the Portland Symphony and various other organizations, and have for many, many years. So I'm really honored to represent the state in this commissioning project this coming year. But I'm based in Boston now. I am really happy to be here with you this evening and to also welcome three of my colleagues from Deus Ex Musica, who I'll introduce in just a moment. I'm going to share my screen so I can show you a little bit about who we are and how this evening is going to work, and then introduce to you our featured composers. We are an ecumenical project that promotes sacred music as a resource for learning, discipleship, and spiritual growth. And what that means is that we are trying to figure out ways for Christians and others to use music as a way of experiencing scripture and growing in faith and learning about their tradition in a unique way. Now, we all, unless we're Quakers, and there's nothing wrong with that, we all have worship music. We all hear music when we're at church. And then many of us probably hear sacred music in other places, like in a secular concert hall or on the radio on the classical music station. But notice in both of those situations, we never have the chance to actually listen to the music and then to sort of talk about and think about really intentionally how it's forming us as Christians, how it helps us engage with the text or the ideas. Because in church, it's music that's meant for us to participate in or meditate upon, and then we move on to the sermon, for example. And at a secular concert or on the radio, we're listening, we're letting the messages flow over us. But again, we don't have really anybody to talk to, at least on the spiritual side, about, for example, Handel's Messiah, if we just heard it at Symphony Hall or something like that. So Deus Ex Musica is trying to create resources and opportunities for us to do this very simple thing. Listen to sacred music and then enter into fellowship and discussion about how that music helps us engage with our tradition and our faith in powerful new ways. Now, we are made up of musicians, pastors, educators from all over the world, and we collaborate with lots of different kinds of folks and institutions. The project that we're going to be sharing with you tonight and that we're going to use as an example of what we do and as an opportunity for you to try this out is based upon brand new musical settings of Psalm 13 by our three guest composers who are all with us tonight. I'd like to introduce them. In no particular order, we have Sean of Pueblo, who is coming to us from Wheaton College Conservatory of Music in Illinois. Sean, hello. We'll be hearing his setting of Psalm 13. We've got Mary Montgomery Capel, who teaches at Gordon College, just north of Boston. And Josh Rodriguez, who's coming to us all the way from California, where he teaches at California Baptist University. What's going to happen this evening is that we are going to be hearing each of these wonderful composers' personal, independent musical interpretations of the same psalm, which they wrote independently. And we're going to use each of those different settings as a sort of a different kind of lens into scripture. They're very different settings of musical settings, but they're also very similar. And so we have found this to be a really interesting way to engage with the text and read it and really hear it in a way you probably never have before. And then we get a chance to talk with each other and even the composers to see if we can get some insight in that way. So how the evening is going to work is that we're going to start by the first hour. I'm going to sort of be the DJ and the moderator of this panel of the three composers and myself. And we'll be listening to each piece. And afterwards, the four of us will be having a conversation about the music and the text. And then while that's happening, I would encourage you to use the handout, or I'm actually going to share on my screen if I can, the text and a few questions that you might be listening for and thinking about as you listen, And because for the last half hour, if you wish to stay, we're going to have some breakout rooms where you'll have a chance to have some actual interaction with each other and some of the composers. So to share your ideas and then maybe talk about how this kind of event or this experience might even impact you in the future. Maybe you want to try this on your own or even in your own faith community, because this is not a very complicated process, right? It's literally listening to music and talking about it, which we all can do. I want to emphasize before we get started that you do not need to be a musician to get something out of this event. You do not need, we call it musical Bible study in a sense. It's talking about scripture, using music, God's gift of music is for everybody. And we know from our experience of running this event all over the world, live and online, that anybody and everybody has something to say about music because it's so fundamental to our human experience. And of course, the Spirit moves in all of us when we read Scripture. So don't be shy about thinking and staying around for the last half hour so we can have a chance to hear from you. I can turn it all over, I think, to Nicole now for a couple words about Psalm 13, which is our text.
Thanks, Del. If you happened to not receive an email from me earlier with active listening worksheets for this evening, I just put in the chat a link to the website where there is a bright red button that allows you to access them right now. So we hope that this is a tool that'll allow you to engage while you listen. And I'm going to read for all of you Psalm 13 so that you might hear it read before you hear the musical pieces. And I'm going to read tonight. I pulled out my Bible with the gold here. I'm going to read the King James Version because of the poetry that is in it. So, Psalm 13, to the chief musician, a psalm of David. How long wilt thou forget me, O Lord? Forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall mine enemy be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest mine enemy say, I have prevailed against him, and those that trouble me rejoice when I am moved. But I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing unto the Lord, because the Lord hath dealt bountifully with me. If there is a word or phrase that's standing out to you from that reading, you can put it in the chat now or just hold it silently for a moment.
As you're adding some thoughts about or picking out a word or phrase in the chat, I wanted to mention that this is in fact one of the questions that on your guided listening worksheet. Sorry, this sounds like school. Basically, we have found that there are two questions we ask people to think about while they listen, and there are two questions that are really broad, but they allow people to have a personal connection with the text. The second question, though there's no order, is simply what word or phrase does the piece emphasize, right? As you hear the music, what word or phrase does the composer try to emphasize? Guess what? We're allowed to repeat words. We're allowed to make certain words louder or softer or higher or lower. And frankly, that's if we make one word really long and high and loud, we know you're going to notice that. So that's a way to get into one of the songs. Might be picking out the word or the phrase that the musical setting emphasizes. And the other one is even broader. Question one: what's the overall mood? What's the emotional landscape? Are there adjectives or phrases, colors, textures, flavors, feelings? Anything goes. We are not looking for certainly musical things. I mean, you will be tested on this, of course, and your grade will go on your permanent record, but we'll talk about that later. So we are going to start with Josh Rodriguez setting. And what I'm going to do is I've shared my screen. We're going to be watching video of the premiere performance from Old South Church in Boston, where this event was presented live. Though when Mary has her song, we're actually going to use Mary's performance of her own piece, which is really exciting, which happened a little bit later. I'm going to try to make this so that so we can sort of follow along the text as Josh said it. Now, Josh was using the World English Bible. And Josh, do you want to say anything about this, or would you like to just to make this tabula rasa, like you sort of do your thing? We sort of listen.
Yeah, why don't I'd rather, instead of introducing it this time, just have everyone just go in not knowing what to expect. And that's one of the great things I love about these opportunities to debrief, is just to get everyone's initial impression. So I'd rather not say anything.
Okay. So I'm going to try to make it so we can kind of keep track on both things. And I'll move a couple things around just because I know it's a little bit weird here. All right. So what's most important here is the music, not the visuals, but the visuals can be nice. So here we go. Josh's setting. Sorry, I'm just going to redo that again. Make sure I have the best sound possible. Hang on just a second. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I would recommend that people turn off their cameras during the performance, as that can help streamline the delivery, and then we can turn it back on.
Great.
Shall I take counsel in my soul, living so long in my heart every day? How long shall my enemies triumph over me? Behold and answer me, Yahweh, my God. Give light to my eyes, lest I sleep in death. Lest my enemies say, I have prevailed against her. Lest my adversaries rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your loving kindness. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing to
wonderful, Josh. So now is a time where our panel of Josh and Mary and Sean and myself have a chance to just talk a little bit about that, about what we just heard. So I don't know if, Josh, you want to go first and tell us a little bit what you were thinking, or I don't know if Mary or Sean have something they wanted to offer.
Sure, I could kick off the conversation. When I wrote this, which was before the pandemic, there were some very personal things that were already happening that I can be upfront about that were behind this personal meditation and musical interpretation. I felt like there were quite a few people in my life who I had seen were having to wait for something, whether it was an extended period of unemployment, um, waiting for family issues to be resolved. In the case of my own family, just being honest, it was struggling with infertility and this sort of desire to have a larger family, and having to wait for a long time for this to be resolved, and it still hasn't been resolved. This is still a point of waiting for us. And then as this piece went out and started being performed in different places, um, and as we head into 2020, of course, then there's even more reasons to wonder, how long, oh Lord? And I just found that it resonated with a lot of people, and for me is still very much a prayer. So that was the starting point for me with this. And I spent some time thinking about the psalm, uh, praying it, and paying close attention to the words, and in some way trying to channel some of what the sort of internal um, stress into this dramatic musical setting that could somehow um, highlight certain words and phrases. And so I'm intrigued to know what struck people, and also to be able to have a conversation with the others who set the song, which I think what you'll find is that as we listen to each setting, there will be more and more questions, and the conversation will go deeper. So that's sort of my intro to this, to the sort of behind the scenes of this piece. And maybe if there's questions that Sean or Mary or Del have, we could talk about that.
I want to know about the ending, Josh, because what I hear is he has been good to me, and there's a beautiful high note, and I think it's going to end, with just this simple sort of constant moment of hope. But then you have sort of the pianist plays almost sound notes that are quite dissonant, ends with two notes right next to each other. This dissonance just ends like that, which so this is what I always strikes me when I hear this piece.
I was actually going to comment on that, Del. So, and then Josh, I want to hear your version too, but may I comment first?
Yeah, go for it. Yes.
Well, I really hear, the dissonance and as sort of the raw pain, the dissonance that we hear early on. So much of this is this raw, it opens with this deep, throaty, low singing that then turns into this high wailing, and it's painful. You can, it is like viscerally raw. And the dissonance as you go through the text, that there's more struggling text than there is comforting text in this psalm, and so you really grapple with that. And I think the dissonant sonorities, the dissonant harmonies, the things that are deliberately uncomfortable are completely appropriate to the sentiment of the text, and hearing your personal connection to the text and to that sentiment makes so much sense to me. That last passage where it turns to trust and it turns to comfort, you, I assume, deliberately turn to a much less dissonant sound palette, right? Less the harmonic palette, the harmonic choices you make are much more consonant and much more comforting. And to me, Del, the final echoes were, or the final dissonant sonorities after that, that I will sing, for God has been good to me, that those words of comfort are still tinged with a little bit of the pain. And so that's my interpretation, Josh. That made perfect sense to me. The way you did that made perfect sense to me, because we can trust and still have our lingering pain.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to communicate in the music, is that just because we have a promise from God and we have hope doesn't mean that the struggle is gone. In fact, the struggle, it could be just equally real, even with that promise that we hold on to. So yeah, that was exactly, I wanted to be careful that I didn't, that the moment when we enter this promise and the singer does say, I trust in you and I trust in your loving kindness, and they believe that wholeheartedly, I wanted to make sure that somehow the ending wasn't giving off a simple fix, that somehow that's the proverb that's just going to get you through it, that's the phrase, just think on it, positive thinking, everything's going to be fine, and that somehow there's no struggle. The struggle continues, and there's a sense in which we can trust in God's promises coming to pass, but not yet many times. And there's a long period of waiting, this sort of already but not yet. So I was trying to capture that tension that is a real part of any of the promises that we read in Scripture.
I think you really did that very well, because it seems just like, I mean, the promise and the trust does not negate the pain, and it does not negate the darkness. It buoys us through the darkness, certainly. But I really appreciate. And now it makes me want to go back and revise mine.
I was. Oh yeah, go ahead, Sean.
No, I was going to add. I mean, my colleagues here, you can just kind of sit here and not say anything, which is hard for me for a guy who loves to talk. They know this. So I'll just say this. I've heard this setting several times, and to me, it gets more and more beautiful from the very, very beginning. It's like this, and so to me, it's a beautiful struggle. This piece is a beautiful struggle. So even in the quote tonally ambiguous moments, there is some beauty and some hope there that my ear is just picking up on. Yes, it's dissonance. Yes, it may not be something that you're used to hearing, but there, the way you said it, and perhaps in terms of the more thin textures, and then of course it gets more dense. There is room for light and space and hope, even in the darker moments. So I love that, which is to me is just what life is. Our lives are a beautiful mess. We go through beautiful struggles, and that's it's grace, it's love, it's hope, it's life, it's we're fallen people. That's why that's life. So.
I gotta say, I also love how I mean, at the beginning where you have the pianist who's Julia, is her name. I mean, smashes all the keys with her hands, and then reaches in, eventually strums. I mean, makes this basic rumbling sound by strumming the strings. And that no matter how much you yell and wail as you read this psalm, it doesn't compare with smashing all the piano notes. That's why I joined marching band in college, because it's fun to cheer when a touchdown happens, but it's more fun to play your instrument, right? Like the music gives you, it's literally louder and more distant than the sound you can make. Right. And that happens in Psalm 13. That's a how long. That's not a how long. It's that kind of how long. We feel that sometimes.
Yeah, I did sense a desperation in this psalm and a return to that phrase. And, and for me as well, it was just this sort of a lot of anger and desperation that comes through in this setting. One thing that I wanted to comment about the end, which maybe you sense some of this, Mary, is that the end, I start to, when it goes into the I will trust section, throughout the piece, there's been a little bit of a distance sometimes between the singer and the accompaniment. And then sometimes when the accompaniment reflects the singer. So sometimes the music, the accompaniment is sort of a landscape in which the speaker is crying out. and other times it reflects it. Toward the end here, I was intentional to introduce a kind of slow waltz and this sort of dance, and then the voice has to sort of learn to submit to that and learn to dance with that. And even certain parts in the piano, um, for those of us who have spent some time studying classical music, um, there are certain melodies that are symmetrical, and these symmetrical melodies, like the word Hannah, you can pronounce it the same forwards and backwards. Those, to us as composers working in the classical tradition, for a long time have been um, uh, it's a tool that we use to represent the supernatural, the divine, and the unchanging. And so I was trying to somehow create this sense of God calling the singer, and there being this sort of sense of submission and of growth into this, whatever that plan is, or whatever the sense of meaning that there would be in this struggle. So I know that's probably, maybe it's deeper than one could actually just listen to on a first hearing, but I was very intentional with this piece about trying to embed it with a certain amount of symbolism that hopefully could be heard, but also could be something interesting worth talking about if someone was interested in asking those kinds of questions.
We can hear all these are on YouTube and through our website. We'll share that link later. But Mary, because you piped up and said that you wanted to change your piece, I thought we should listen to yours next. So we can be the judge of that. So I'm ready to, this is actually, we have a treat of actually hearing Mary perform her own piece here. So here we go.
Shall I take counsel in my soul? Shall I struggle in my soul? Shall I grapple? Shall I agonize and wrestle with my thoughts and with my soul? How long? Having sorrow in my heart, grief in my heart, day after day. How
Bravo. Bravo.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I feel like I should say a bit about the text because I kind of did my own thing. we all talked about this and we all agreed that World English Bible felt like a great translation, and then I kind of went off the rails and decided to adapt the text with other translations. I guess as introduction, I'll just say that, and I don't know, Del, if you would be willing to maybe pull up what the text looks like the way I interpreted it, but I, like Josh, we tackled writing this at the end of around this time of year, actually, maybe a little bit later. I can't remember if it was February or March when we started, but the end of long winter, and that's traditionally a very challenging time of the year for me. And I was going through my own personal struggles, and this psalm resonated with me so tremendously. So I took this as an opportunity. This felt like a very personal statement to me. This felt like my own this didn't feel like, this was not, a congregational meditation. This was really like a personal, very raw prayer for me. And I think similar to how Josh approached it. And in terms of the text, I just found singing "Oh Lord," felt, as a singer, just felt more resonant to me. So I went with "Oh Lord" instead of Yahweh. And then we got to, I worked my way through the text, through the scripture. I got to the line, "Shall I take counsel in my soul?" And that's not exactly something that you say very often. Like, no, it's a Tuesday. Let's take counsel in my soul.
Yeah.
It's not it's not like very relatable terminology. And so I was kind of like, that's just not really sitting with me, right? So I was like, I want to look at other translations of it. And so I went and I was going through all these different translations, different versions of the psalm, and some said struggle in my soul, some said grapple with my soul, some said agonize, one said wrestle with my thoughts. And I was like, I do all of the things, right? I do all of those things. And that's exactly what it is, right? It's the agonizing and chewing on something. And it's 2 a.m. and you just can't stop agonizing about this thing that you can't let go, right? And so I felt like actually repeating the sentiment in 5 different ways felt like that's exactly what I would do in this prayer. That felt very much like, yeah, that's what I do. And it is taking counsel in my soul. And so I didn't want to get rid of take counsel of my soul, because that's what I'm doing, but it's also struggling and grappling and agonizing and overanalyzing and all of that. Same with, sorrow in my heart, grief in my heart. There are different translations of that. So I decided to kind of pick and choose which translations resonated with me, which ones also like musically felt more musical sometimes. Like loving kindness. Oh man, I went nuts with that translation, right? That's a fun word. But that's also like the critical word when you get through it, it's such a critical moment. I trust in your loving kindness. And what exactly does that mean? And so when I looked at these other translations, and I was like, yeah, it's your love, it's your unfailing love, it's God's mercy, it's God's steadfast love, So that's kind of why I sort of adapted the text to suit sort of my own personal take on this prayer. And I will say this is my personal. I feel like this is a very personal statement. These are sacred art songs. And we've talked sometimes in previous sessions about sort of like, is this liturgical? Is this something you use in worship, and how? And I'll admit that I think that I selfishly went internal as I was writing it. That it really was more my own internal prayer, and sort of more inwardly focused. But so that's a big long introduction. Sorry.
Yeah. As you know, I just love I love the setting so much. But so having you perform it is incredible. What's beautiful about it is, even hearing the other performance, I still felt like that there was this conversation between the singer and God. I mean, at the beginning, you're like, it's like an argument. I mean, you're like wailing, like, how long? I mean, you go on. I mean, it starts off with this, like, low key, almost funeral dirge, and then it's quite effective. So yes, we saw you sing it, and we saw the passion, and it was beautiful, and it was awesome. But you wrote it in a way that I think any singer, any good singer, I mean, you can really feel that, the way you set this music. And I've characterized this setting like this before. To me, it's just a clear narrative. It's a story. It's almost like a mini, one person operetta, because you really feel that journey in this piece, especially at the end when you talk about trust in your loving kindness, in your mercy, just that fast love. So that's my take on this.
John.
One of the things that stood out to me, you mentioned internal. I felt that from the very beginning. There was a loneliness in the first minute of this that just is heartbreaking. And even though eventually there's this rush of emotion that turns into wailing and shouting, it really, your melody at first kind of dips and goes down, and it just feels like it's one person who's alone and who's wondering why. And it's the opposite actually of what I did, because mine heads up and out very quickly, and yours sort of stayed more internal at the beginning. But then what I was really, I guess, moved by this at the very end, is that when you return to that quieter loneliness after the big outburst, and we head into those words, but I trust, we hear this even before the words, I think if I remember this correctly, even before the words are said, but I trust, we hear this like high, bright piano melody, and it's like this sparkling thing from afar, almost like a star. I don't know, to me it sort of represented hope, like hope is on the way, like just wait, there is hope, is just out of your view. And then it feels like the singer then like takes steps toward that, and the hope also comes closer, which I don't know, I thought that was beautiful. And I think it's also a beautiful picture of the relationship that I think we as human beings have to God. Especially it stood out to me because in our culture, self-help and sort of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, dream big, and then you chase your dreams and you make it happen, that sort of emphasis comes with that, to perform and to be great. But also it feels like you have to do it by yourself, and the great people always do it by themselves. And I don't think that, certainly we work hard for that, but I think there's something really particular about salvation and about God sort of reaching down and and finding us, and somehow lifting us up. And I think that's what hope does. And I don't know, for some reason, that's what struck me. I've heard this now 2-3 times at least, and I think it's a beautiful setting. But this time in particular, that sort of idea of salvation, redemption, sort of coming from afar, and then the psalmist just needing to wait for it. I don't know. That really stood out to me. It's really powerful.
And it begs the question and the whole point of this project is we can all read these Psalms at different times and different seasons of life and in different mindsets. And we can read them to ourselves and experiencing them, feel them in these different ways with different types of hope and pain and anger versus desperation. And those are different. And music can do these subtle things, right? In an almost unfair way to the text. That's why I don't have any problem with Mary doing all the stuff with the text, because simply sending a biblical text to music is already warping and twisting in ways that pastors and preachers can only wish they could do, right? So I say just go big or go home, right? I love it. Also, I love it in your setting, Mary, how it's almost a sense of like ruminating or perseverating where all those words go really fast, It's like there's an anxiety that you get because of the rhythm, because you added synonyms, which is allowed. But
yeah, I embraced what I call the crash bang synonyms, right? Like the ones that are like crunchy and like the words are dense. Shall I take counsel in my soul? Like that's like not comfortable words to sing, but that's not a comfortable sentiment. I'd love to just respond briefly, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Sean's piece too, but to Josh's observation that the opening is very turning, it's turning downward, whereas yours turned upward, like the shape of the melody pulled downward and felt inwardly oriented. And interestingly, sort of opposite of what you had done in your opening melody. I actually turned the melody upside down though at the very end. So after the stars, and thank you, my goodness, thank you for describing that as the twinkling of, that's exactly what I want it to sound like. So yay. But after the words, but I trust in your loving kindness, and then I will sing is instead of how long becomes I will sing, turns the exact same intervals upward and outward, and that is a deliberate choice, because I'm offering myself up, right? That this is focusing as opposed to the inward, which has limited productivity. It's turning it upward and offering it up to God there. And so I just wanted to point that out. But thank you all three of you for your observations. I love hearing them, and I love hearing when things that I didn't intend to do come through in really cool ways, and then things that I totally intentionally did also come through. That's always exciting to me. But I love the parallels with, Josh and I both turn harmonically and in tone and in mood at I trust in your loving kindness. That's a critical turning point in the scripture. And so that's a critical turning point, in our music also in each setting. So,
well, let's listen to how Sean does it, because I think there's some really wonderful resonances with Sean's, especially what Mary was just saying. So I'll hold that thought. And here we go.
Will my enemy triumph over me? Turn and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will die. Don't let my enemy say, we have defeated her. Don't let them rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your loving kindness. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, because He is good to
Hello.
Perhaps we should do something different, and I won't comment. I will have my colleagues comment, and then maybe I can respond to my colleagues.
Well, I love talking just as much as you, Sean. So I would be
Sure.
I love your setting. It's got such a different affect than Josh's and than mine, in that I really feel like it's so meditative and reflective, and it's less dramatic and less sort of like forward driven narrative ish than I feel like at least my song is, at least my setting is. but I find it so compelling and peaceful, and um, uh, I don't know, like I feel like that has such it's such I can so see it used, liturgically. It feels like it's such a prayer. It seems more like a universal prayer than a personal statement, and I really love that about this setting. Yeah, so I could go. I take notes when I'm listening to all of these, because as I'm just observing things. I could go on for days with this piece because I find it so fascinating. I love that at that turning point that I was mentioning with both Josh's and mine, where we turn to more sort of consonant and less uncomfortable harmonies. I actually think, and I may have misheard this, to me, I heard in yours a more predictable rhythmic profile at that point. When you turn to I trust in the Lord, it felt like the piano and the voice were a little more in sync rhythmically. Whereas in the beginning, it felt like the piano is this like sort of pointillistic or impressionist backdrop against the meditation of the singer. And whereas that last part felt the most sort of like they're cohesive together at that part. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that was what I observed this time. And as you know, I've heard this a few times now, and I always, it's the peace. I love that you dwell in the peace and in the light, alongside the struggle, and I just find it. I can certainly. I want to sing this at my church. I mean, in fact, can I? Could you get me a score? I'd like to sing this at my church.
Of course. I can respond, but maybe Josh should.
Oh, I was just going to add, I mean, I resonate with what Mary said. At the beginning, it sounds there's a tiredness that I sensed in this. So it feels like that's the starting point. And then, there's this moment where if you're listening to the piece, you might not catch it, but if you're watching it, we all saw the singer turn and sing into the piano on that phrase, turn and answer me. And it just feels like the singer is confronting the void of God's silence and absence, which sometimes can feel more real than God's presence. And so it was dramatic, and also just it was a really powerful moment. And the other part that always stands out to me in this in your setting is you have a wordless section where the singer is just sort of singing ooze, and it's right before the statement, but I trust in your loving kindness. And I don't know, for me that's always struck me as sometimes there's a pain that's just too difficult to name, and sometimes there are just hurts that we would rather not speak, and it just comes through in tears. And I don't know, that this setting, while it's amazingly meditative, part of that meditation is that it makes room for that kind of pain. And there's almost something comforting even about experiencing this setting along the way. It was really comforting even from the very beginning. So I think it's beautiful and really effective.
We're gonna have a chance to in like 1 minute we should move into some breakout rooms. We have some, and the lucky few will have a chance to hear from Sean directly. But John, do you have like a minute of response to what you heard?
Yeah, yeah. I won't. I will just say this. Thank you for your comments. But if you saw the score, it's probably the most complex rhythmically of probably all of my colleagues' pieces. But it sounds probably the simplest. It's pretty much it's the most diatonic. So it's probably the most complex rhythmically and the most diatonic, except for that little middle part. Even then, I don't venture off pretty much. And that was really, really intentional to that conflict between this peace, this simplicity, but it is a struggle. Singing, like you're singing 5 against 3, and not just that, even more complex than that, in the piece. So you have this, again, I use the term beautiful struggle with Josh's piece, but in a different way. I love your observation, Mary, because while the last part was still pretty complex rhythmically, it was the most in sync-ish. And Yeah, which I thought, I don't know if I intended it to be that, but if not, I'm going to steal it and put it in the program note because I think it works quite nicely.
Yeah, it's like it becomes a little bit more metric,
Right,
or
right.
the interactions just
Yeah,
line up a little more tightly than
exactly.
other interactions that you have.
And you're
Which
100% right with that.
I think it has. You could, I mean, totally claim that was intentional, Josh.
Yeah,
Have that.
yeah, and you know, and to be fair, it probably was because I wanted the very even more simple there, more clear, more beautiful, if you will. I hate to use the word beautiful because I think all of our pieces are beautiful, but yeah, so that's that. Mhm.
Thank you. Nicole, do you want to set us up for the next portion of the evening for those who want to stay?
Please and thank you. Um, Before sharing a little information of how to stay involved and instructions for the conversation part of this evening, I would love to introduce BTS Center Executive Director Alan Ewing Merrill just to share a word of gratitude at this point.
Yes, I just want to say thank you. It's what a wonderful evening. I found it so profound to think about how these psalms that were written maybe 3,000 years ago and then translated into English several hundred years ago, but translated so many times into English and then interpreted musically hundreds, maybe thousands of times over all those years. It was really a gift to be able to listen to three of those and to hear directly from you composers. So thank you so much to you, Del and Deus Ex Musica, for partnering with us on this. Thank you to the three composers, Josh, Mary, and Sean. Really an honor to have you with us. And thank you to all who have joined us for this event this evening.
As a special follow-up opportunity, the BTS Center is partnering again with Deus Ex Musica for a lunchtime conversation on how to use sacred music as a resource for faith formation. Debbie Glein Allen, Minister for Faith Formation for the Southern New England Conference of the United Church of Christ, will be joining Del and myself to workshop some ideas and get practical. So please join us if you can. You're going to see some links in the chat. Those will give you a chance to sign up for that gathering. And of course, to stay connected to Deus Ex Musica or the BTS Center, please visit our websites and sign up for our newsletters. We would love to continue the journey with you. So for those of you who would like to stay and engage in small group conversation facilitated by the composers, and this evening's program leaders will be making that transition in just a moment. However, as the first part is coming to a close, I would like to offer blessings to those of you who are signing off now. So go in peace, and thank you so much for being with us this evening.